نصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم رسوله النبي الأمين المكين الحنين الكريم الرؤوف الرحيم. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحب وترضى بأن تصلي عليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وهو الذي جعلكم خلائف الأرض ورفع بعضكم فوق بعض درجات ليبلوكم فيما آتاكم إن ربك سريع العقاب وإنه لغفور رحيم. صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Most respected ulama, my respected elder brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inshallah ta'ala, next week we're going to be having a special guest all the way from Cape Town, Sheikh Ismail Lant, who will be delivering the pre-khutbah discussion as well as the khutbah and of course the qira'ah before the lecture. And as such, I've had to shift my program in terms of the topics for discussion. So by the time we get to the week after that, the elections, national elections have already taken place. So I thought I'd give you my 2 cents worth in terms of the upcoming elections, inshallah ta'ala. At the very outset, let me present a disclaimer here very clearly. I hope my lawyers are around. They're around. It's okay. Right? That today's discussion is meant to initiate, right, as well as to inspire and provoke discussion in the Muslim community regarding the forthcoming elections. These are not guidelines that I'm giving you regarding the forthcoming elections. There have been lots of very, very noble efforts within the Muslim community to help and guide the Muslim community in terms of making a correct decision or an informed decision regarding who to vote for. Today, my discourse is fundamentally to inspire and to provoke discussion in the Muslim community regarding the elections and a greater vision and a greater goal. At the same time, let me clarify that there are going to be quite a few red herrings in my discussion, again, to provoke discussion. They don't necessarily represent my own personal opinions and views. Also, at the same time, another disclaimer, in the sense that I'm also going to be playing devil's advocate. Okay? Again, to provoke and stimulate discussion in the community out there, because this is what we need to do. We can't be complacent. At the very least, we need to be talking about it, inshallah ta'ala. Now let's give a Quranic and historical basis to this whole concept of elections and government and political parties and so on. If we study the Holy Quran, you will understand that from a Quranic perspective, in terms of human history, Quranic human history commences with the declaration and the announcement and the proclamation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of His chosen candidate as His subhanahu wa ta'ala's representative on planet Earth. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Remember and recall that moment when Allah addressed the angels and He said, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I am placing on planet Earth my representative. Human history of the Quran starts off with an election, or what we may term as selection. There were 3 possible parties and 3 possible candidates. One belonged to the species called angels, malaika. The second party, represented by the salt of the earth, Iblis, Shaitan himself. And the third candidate was from the human species. So you had the angels who were vying for the position of representatives of Allah on earth. You had Iblis representing the species of jinn. And you had Adam alayhi salatu wasalam representing the human species. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared it to everybody that His chosen candidate obviously is the one who's going to be leading the community and will be the representative of Allah on earth, was Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Angels, on the other hand, commented and said, Ya Allah, you have appointed a leader and you have appointed as your vicegerent a species that has a proclivity to and has a tendency to man yufsidu fiha wa yasfiku dima. It is part of human nature to engage and to fall into corruption. And corruption can lead to such a point wherein they won't think twice of shedding blood. Malaika, right? In terms of exactly how elections take place. If you know how elections take place, and you know when political parties are vying for their votes there, they will go out and show to you all of the shortcomings of the opposing political party. Understand the context in which I'm speaking here. So Malaika said, Ya Allah, this is man's proclivity. He has a proclivity towards corruption and he has a proclivity to shedding blood. وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ. And then they speak about their own good. And they say, Ya Allah, we engage in your tasbih, takbir and tahmeed. We don't disobey you, Ya Allah. That was the first comment by one party that was eligible for the position of vicegerency. The next objection, see, comment and objection. The next objection came from Iblis himself. If the Malaika commented on man's proclivity towards corruption and bloodshed and spoke about his shortcomings in terms of his fitrah and nature, Iblis, on the other hand, was fundamentally and purely racist. He said, I'm better than him. He's not even eligible. He has no eligibility to become a vice-president of yours, Ya Allah. He doesn't have any legitimacy to become the vice-president. And what was the basis? The basis was racism. I am better than him. He's been created from dust and I've been created from fire. Again, racist. But what distinguished Adam alayhi salatu wasalam? The angels had all the qualifications in terms of religiosity. So in terms of spirituality, the angels were far more superior. In terms of materiality, Shaitan claimed that he was greater because in terms of his material makeup, he's made from fire and they are made from tin. So like we have our races today, no, the white race is supremacists. And you have the black supremacists, by the way. So all this is racism. So spirituality was questioned by the angels. Materiality was questioned by Iblis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said the distinguishing characteristic of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam was ilm. Allah taught Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, allama Adam al-asma'a kulla. Allah taught Adam alayhi salam the nature and the name of all things. And then he told Adam, oh Adam, you teach it to the angels. So the superiority of the human race is fundamentally on ilm. And the vicegerents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his most perfect form have been Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam. But the reality of the matter is, even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selects Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam for a position of leadership, political, spiritual leadership, humanity has opposed Allah's chosen messengers. وَقَالُوا لَوْلَا نُزِلَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنُ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِّنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ. When the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam was selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is from pre-eternally, the kuffar said, couldn't this Quran be revealed on somebody from a very noble, from a noble village, and عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ مِّنَ رَجُلٍ مِّنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ? Couldn't this be revealed to a person from a higher ranking individual, from a higher ranking village? أَهُمْ يَقْسِمُونَ رَحْمَةَ رَبِّكَ. Why? They understood that the Holy Prophet ﷺ came from an aristocratic lineage. But financially, materially, the Holy Prophet ﷺ did not have that financial influence that the Meccans were looking for in terms of their leader. The Holy Prophet ﷺ did not have that degree of a social influence because he was an orphan. And because of his background, they didn't regard the Holy Prophet ﷺ as a suitable or eligible candidate, the kuffar of Makkah. If you look at the example of Sayyidina Shamuil alayhi salatu wasalam and Talut, the same story. وَقَالَ لَهُمْ نَبِيٌّ مِّنَ اللَّهِ قَدْ بَعَثَ لَكُمْ طَالُوتَ مَلِكًا. The Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Allah has selected, he is the religious leader, the spiritual leader. He says, but the political leader is, إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ بَعَثَ لَكُمْ طَالُوتَ مَلِكًا. Allah has selected and chosen Talut as the king. قالوا أن يكون له الملك ونحن أحق علينا بالملك ولم يؤت سعة من المال. He said, has Allah chosen him when we are more worthy of ruling this country and governing? Why? نحن أحق بالملك ولم يؤت سعة من المال. And then what was the reason? He doesn't have money. He doesn't have financial and economic influence. He doesn't have financial clout. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, Allah is not interested in his wealth and his financial clout and his economic influence. وَنَحْنُ حَقُّ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ قَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ صَفَاهُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. Allah said, I chose Talut because of وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ, because he has both mental ilm and he has physical strength. So in terms of ilm, he's very capable. In terms of his physical strength and his emotional strength, he's a very capable leader. So we understand from the Holy Quran that in terms of elections and the election process, and in terms of political parties and lobbying of political parties, and in terms of the selection of a leader, political leader or otherwise, or spiritual leader for that matter, humanity has always opposed this process. So it's part and parcel of the nature of politics that you're going to have these upheavals, you're going to have these tensions, you're going to have these competing groups, you're going to have these lobbying groups and parties, each one vying for two things fundamentally: power and money. Power and money. Now, if as a student of Islamic political history, if you study Islamic political history, you will see Islam and Islam's political history has the same track record. Really, it has the same track record. Unfortunately, it's one of the greatest travesties in the Ummah that the validity and the legitimacy of the election, the first election after the physical demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa wasallam, is still being contested and questioned till today. And he created a schism which has lasted 1400 years. It created initially in terms of history, two political parties, Shi'atul Ali, right? And you had the Shia of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala and so on. It created two political parties initially, and then turned into ideological groups. Till today, the Shia group still contests the validity and the legitimacy of the election. They're fighting for it for the past 1400 years. Why? Get over it, man. Get over it. You understand? That's a reality. If you look at the election and the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, the country and the state was fraught with difficulties and challenges. You had the Ridda wars, the apostasy wars, and what was one of the fundamental reasons for the wars of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu? People refused to pay tax. As citizens in the state, especially the new, those people who are newly reverted to Islam, refused to pay tax. They refused to pay the zakah. How can you run a country when its economic, financial, and principles and fundamentals are not sound and people are not paying tax? It led to wars. Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in spite of it being the golden age in terms of conquest and so on, what happened? He was essentially assassinated by Firoz Abu Lu'lu. Assassination of Amirul Mu'mineen. Think about it. You can't tell me that, our political history, don't whitewash this entire thing. Don't sugarcoat it. These are realities, but there are so many lessons for the Ummah that if we study it, we will understand how brilliant the course of action was in terms of the divine plan, that we are given so much of guidance. Sayyidina Usman Ghani, again, assassinated. But with assassination, civil war broke out. Civil war, he was assassinated, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Right? His house was surrounded. And the accusations were in terms of his cabinet, and particularly Machiavellian, I call it Marwani politics. Marwan is, one of the most corrupt people in terms of politics in Islamic history. Marwan, right? And the misuse of your office of power. So you had this political corruption coming in. These are lessons, got nothing to do with Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala. It got to do with corrupt people in his cabinet. Sayyidina Ali karamullah ta'ala wajhul kareem. Practically his entire tenure of 4 years and 9 months plus minus was what? Extinguishing internal fires, political issues, going to war because of politics. The fifth Khalifa Rashida, Sayyidina Imam Hassan bin Ali karamullah ta'ala wajhul kareem, had to finally reunite and reconcile two fi'atayn azimatayn, two great groups within the Muslim Ummah to prevent greater bloodshed. So these are realities of Islamic history that we can't overlook. But there are so many brilliant lessons inside that will teach us strategy in terms of how we live our lives as citizens in Muslim countries, or for that matter in countries like ours, in South Africa. And today's discussion, now I'm going inside again, my disclaimer, it's there to provoke, stimulate discussion. And there's going to be a few red herrings. I'll see if you can pick it up. And I will play devil's advocate in a while or two. Firstly, let me tell you where my discussion starts off from. This is a very important one. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim and other books of Ahadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made one statement, which by the way was echoed by Sun Tzu. You know the great Japanese military leader Sun Tzu. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-harbu khada'ah." He said, war is deception. Meaning, khada'ah, not deception in that sense of the word that you and I know it, right? Al-harbu khada'ah. And deception here means strategy. It requires for you to be able to outsmart, outwit, outmaneuver your opponent or your enemy. And fundamental to al-harbu khada'ah is strategy and planning, or strategic planning. If you look at the history of Islamic politics again, you will understand the Rasul of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba Kiram, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, all Hazrat Ali, all the Khulafa Rashidun were masters in strategic planning. Masters. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'll give you one example. If the Prophet of Allah intended to go out on some military expedition or to deal with some people, the Prophet of Allah will go in a certain direction. Why? Just to beguile the people who are his enemies, that to get them off track, because he needs to outwit them, outmaneuver them. He doesn't want them to know what he's thinking, what his plan of action is, etc. So al-harbu khada'a, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, war is deception. War is all about strategy and strategic planning. So in this context here, as Muslims in South Africa, what is the first thing that we ought to have done or ought to be doing? Strategy and planning. Which unfortunately we haven't done in 30 years, in the real sense of the word. Why am I saying this? We haven't understood the nature and the beast that we call politics, whether it's globally or locally. And we have to understand, and it's not the time for me to give you a lesson in politics 101, but you've got to understand the dynamics in this country. Okay? Few things I'm going to tell you. Understand one thing, in this country here, we vote for a political party. That's how the system of election takes place. The choice of the candidates for that political party is not made by you. None of those choices are made by you as citizen X. You understand? One who marks the spot. None of them are made by you. People belong to a political party. The eligibility and the ability of the candidate is not something that you are privy to. Or in fact, the election and the selection of a person who will possibly be a candidate for becoming a member of parliament is not your choice. All you have to do as the basic citizen, right? The only option that you have in terms of a free country, democratic country, is to put an X. Let's be realistic about it. That's what it is. You don't choose the president, you don't choose the prime minister. Keep that in mind. You've chosen and you've voted for a political party. Once you vote for them, every other decision fundamentally, essentially is made by them. Understand point number 2, that every political party has its own policies and own agendas. And it subscribes to certain values and principles. And remember this one critical point, that if you belong to a political party, you have to toe the line with political party policies and agendas. Regardless of your faith, regardless of your creed, regardless of what your own moral standpoint may be. You toe the line with the political party, that's it. You can't say, no, it's you can do that within the caucus, your own group inside that. But in parliament, you can't do that. You vote or you shut up. And once they find out that, you are not towing the line in terms of party policy like our man Zuma, you suspended. Because you are there fundamentally to punt and fundamentally to continue to promote party policy and agenda. Understand this reality. And remember this fact, and you know this. Political parties and their policies and agendas are given greater preference than the needs and the requirements of the greater public. They will always put party politics, party policy, party agenda first. You, Mr. Joe Public, either fit into the agenda because you subscribe to it by default, or otherwise shut up and next time don't vote for us. They're going to make a difference to our lives. Second important point. Thirdly, in terms of the nature, what we know as the beast called politics, understand one thing. Very rarely, if ever, can you put the word honest and politician next to each other. Okay, let's be honest about it. Even the most morally upright people, at one point or the other, in terms of their political parties and their political affiliation, will have to subscribe to something that they don't agree with. That's it. That's the nature of the political beast. And understand one thing, in any country, corruption is endemic. You can't take it out. If you're going to have these lofty ideas, forget about it. Forget about it. There are other agendas that dictate policies. And corruption is endemic. The only difference is you've just got to now weigh the scale of corruption. Who's the more corrupt? You can't say nobody is corrupt. Forget about it. Right? Let's see now, what's the scale of corruption? Right? This political party, Allahu Akbar, 25 years, 30 years, Tawbah, Tawbah, Tawbah. This political party, this degree of corruption, astaghfirullah. Right? Like this you can carry on. You'll just have to measure in terms of who's the least corrupt. So if this political party over 30 years stole over 400 billion rand, then the next political party, which is the opposing party, stole 200 billion rand. Or the other one stole 50 billion rand. But the point is, sab chori kiye. It's there, it's not going to change. You see, I'm not sugarcoating anything. This is the way it is. Okay, next thing. In terms of your vote, yes, you can go out there, it's your democratic right to vote, and you should be doing that. But understand one thing, in terms of kingmakers and decision makers, the greater public out there, if ever, has little or no influence on that. No influence on that. No influence on that. You don't choose your president. The National Assembly chooses it. But what happens? Typical votes. So if your political party was 47% and the next opposing political party was 21% and 12%, even if if you have a majority inside there, even if all the other opposing parties are standing for something right, you can't do it because why? Majority rules. Justice doesn't rule. Numbers rule. Understand one thing. Numbers rule. Majority rules. And not only in South Africa, that's globally. This is a reality. So, in terms of the decision making and king making, it doesn't happen. And in fact, if you know how political parties work within, if a person wants to be in a position, no matter how capable the person may be, no matter how qualified the person may be, within the horse trading that takes place within political parties, the amount of money that is changed between hands there, within their own party, say, boss, you vote for me, there's $1 million. That happens. And understand one thing, once the MP is sworn into parliament, they are not interested in their eligibility or their ability to be the minister of so-and-so, the minister of finance or the minister of communication, the minister of public relations, whatever the ministry may be. That person may have zero qualifications, but because he or she belongs to the political party and they're high-ranking members inside there, they just put you inside there. The person may not even be able to sign his or her name properly. No, they're running the Ministry of Forestry, mashallah, subhanallah. So ability and eligibility and capacity to be able to administer and management doesn't really count. Understand these realities. Okay. Then, in terms of international influence, what do you think? What do you think? We South Africans made the decision. Why? They got to speak to the Lord of the White Houses first. The policy makers there, the decision makers there. You got to speak to the European Union. You got to speak to all of the international decision makers and king makers who will tell you how to play the game. Okay. Number 3, in terms of what we call principles, understand one thing. Every political party is built upon principles. All those principles may not be principles that you agree upon. You don't have much of a choice. Rather the devil you know than the devil you don't know. But here, now I'm starting. Now you're going to pay very careful attention. Red headings are coming and devil's advocate is coming right now. Gaza is what? It's fundamentally, if you leave everything else, it's a humanitarian issue. It's a humanitarian issue. It's about justice. That's why we are sitting at the International Court of Justice right now. And it's something that is incumbent upon every member of the United Nations. If South Africa and the ruling party takes the Zionist occupiers to court on principle, you applaud it, subhanallah, mashallah. But understand it in the context as well. There may be some that don't support it. Those that may be partial, although they may claim to be neutral, they are in terms of practice, they are aligned to the Zionist objectives. Okay. Now, what about this? No problem. You took the ICJ. Subhanallah, what a principle stand. MashaAllah, we applaud it. The Ittihadul Ulama came down to South Africa to say to him, Subhanallah, MashaAllah, very good. Sir or madam, since October and since January, have we imposed economic sanctions on the Zionist occupier? No. Have we stopped all trade in arms in terms of dealing with Denel, the South African arms? Have we stopped it? No. Have we imposed economic sanctions against the Zionist occupier? No. Taken to court, very good. In terms of, legitimate and moral and legal authority, very good. But where does it hurt? It hurts in finance. We're talking about boycott and divestment. South Africa still hasn't done it. Makes you think, doesn't it? Makes you think, doesn't it? Yeah. Got you thinking? Good. Understand one thing. In this country, political parties are divided into what? Racial groups, right? Cultural groups, ideological groups, and there's one more, I can't remember it right now. But these are fundamentally the groups. Right? You have those people there who have established political parties because they want to pursue and they want to promote their religion. So you have African Christian Democratic Party. By the way, if you are not aware, right, we have a minimum of 3 Muslim political parties or predominantly Muslim political parties contesting the election either nationally or locally. 3, which gives you an indication that we Muslims are active politically, which is a very good thing. And interestingly, if you look at all the parties, there are no other religious denominations that I know of that are openly contesting election. We have not one, we have plus minus 3 provisionally and nationally contesting the elections. Which gives you an indication, by the way, which is a good thing. You can't do that in a Muslim country, in most Muslim countries. But we can do it here. But the point here is, fine, do we only vote for them? Do we only vote for them? And leave everybody out? I'm going to tell you something else now. What about this thing? Think about this. What about if we had a Muslim in every single influential party? Whether it's a ruling party, whether it's the current opposing party, whether it is people who are fighting for free economic freedom, etc., 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 who want to get into action, you get it, right? Did you think about that? Did you think about that? That you need to have one, whether it's a demonic alliance as far as you are concerned or not. What about the idea of having a Muslim or a few Muslims in every political party? Huh? What are you talking about? Morally repugnant. These people don't support Israel. They don't support Palestine. Yeah. Shh, keep quiet. Al-harbu khada'a. The Prophet of Allah said, war is deception. You need to have people out there who can present that aspect. Remember, as a Muslim, Islam comes first. The maqasid of Sharia are paramount. We need to have people out there in all of these groups, hearing what is going on, understanding the policies, understanding their agendas. And we need to have one voice at least, presenting a voice on behalf of the Muslim, because whoever the political party may be, whatever the political person may be, in terms of, he's first a Muslim. And if he doesn't subscribe to that inside, he needs to be told about it, or she needs to be told about it. Yeah, think about it. And if you understand why, look at how the Yahud or the Zionists engage in al-harbu khad'a, war is deception. If you look at America alone, you'll have American International AIPC. Right? What do they do? Do you know what they do? That's what I'm talking about. Supporting this political party, supporting that political party got nothing to do with anything with these guys in terms of their strategy. In terms of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, most influential Zionist lobby group for the illegitimate state of Israel. Do you know what their strategy is? They support all parties. They support all parties. They are sitting around the table, literally in the White House, with the president. Where are we sitting? Standing outside and viva, viva, viva outside. They're sitting inside. They have the ear of the president and the influential people within parliament itself. That's where we need to be. If you look at the amount of funding that the Americans do in terms of the lobby government, I'll do something for you. He says the AIPC launched their own political action committee. They used to encourage supporters to donate to candidates. So what do? They spread the money across the board. Support all of these political parties. And because why? What matters? Paisa matters. So if you have the money and if you can support them out there, you can use this as leverage, and everybody knows that's how political parties survive. That's not our strategy. And you want to know now why we can't get hold of this person and why we can't influence this. Already, if you look at the amount of donations given by those people who are pro-Zionists in this country, you'll understand they're given hundreds of millions. And don't say no, but they got, hold on. The Jewish community and the pro-Zionists in this country are a small group of people. In terms of number, we Muslims outnumber left, right, and center. But if in terms of donations, who's given the most? And who you think the party is going to support eventually at one point or the other? You know how party politics goes, right? They say, hunt with the hounds and run with the hares. Hunt with the hounds and run with the hares. That's the policy. That's the policy. And this is what counts. This is where the influence is. And we don't have that influence. We don't have lobby groups. And these lobby groups exist in America, exist in South Africa, exist in every part of the world that will promote the agenda of the enemies of Deen. We need to be working there because that's where the decisions are made. That's where the decisions are made. The people who have the most amount of financial, cultural clout are the people who have the most amount of political clout. We don't talk about the mafia of Stellenbosch, unnecessarily. Yeah. These are harsh realities, but this is the way it is. Okay? Now, next one. Where's strategy again? Strategy comes in again in terms of local municipal elections, provincial elections. Sometimes these smaller parties, because enough people voted for them, get a seat into the local municipality or the provincial government, or for that matter, sometimes into national government. But what happens? This can be very, very beneficial. Why? It serves as a swing vote. So if the ruling political party needs to swing the vote in their favor regarding a certain issue and whatever their matter may be, this swing vote then holds a lot of weight. Otherwise, it's insignificant, but it holds a lot of weight. So that is this is one of the factors that we need to take into consideration in terms of, again, lobbying and strategy. Understand, in terms of ethics and morality and very lofty principles and so on. In this country, we are bound by a constitution. We are ahlul mu'ahada. We are people who have subscribed, and we are people who are in an agreement, in mu'ahada, right? In a treaty with this government as Muslims. And we are supposed to respect the constitution. But understand, this high moral stand only in terms of principles doesn't run a country and doesn't win an election and doesn't serve the needs necessarily completely of the Muslim Ummah. Understand what I just said? Because if we are standing only on principal issues, then the very same political parties and the governments that are there out there have openly, since the inception of a free South Africa, supported LGBTQ, supported same-sex marriages, supported abortion. No matter what the whole Muslim Ummah does and no matter what the entire country does in terms of bringing back the death penalty, ain't going to happen. Ain't gonna happen. You know this for so many other policies. Ain't gonna happen. Because these are the fundamentals that describe you, because your constitution is vehemently secular. So when we get onto our high moral ground and our high horses out there, no, on principle this one here, hold on a minute, bye. Understand the nature of politics in this country, what it was in 1994. If you told me in terms of principle, in terms of being a liberation movement, the ANC in 1994 deserved to be in position of power, I said 100%. 30 years down the line, we've got to look at alliances. 30 years down the line, we've got to look at the greater global picture. 30 years down the line, we've got to see whether the maqasid, who is fulfilling our maqasid of Sharia that will enable us to enjoy our so-called religious freedom in this country. These are the things. And we've got to understand who we have the most amount of leverage with and who we can approach most. Like I said, most of these political parties are either based on racial grounds, cultural grounds. So if you're an Afrikaner, you're going to support the Afrikaner. Historically, if you look at this country inside there, people in terms of race have voted for a certain political party and certain group. You won't get white people in general en masse voting for the ANC or Inkatha Freedom Party or EFF. Heard of something like that? They're only going to go in one direction. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if you are in KwaZulu-Natal, the Muslims of Cape Town must be on the same page with you in terms of politics. Our scenario in KwaZulu-Natal is different than the scenario in Cape Town is different. The scenario in Johannesburg is different. The Cape Townians need to realize, you need to get out of a demonic alliance. I don't take political names here. You need to get out of it. You need to get out of it. It's problematic on various levels. And you have a track record. Like I said, it's a different situation for Cape Town. It may not be the same situation for Durban or KwaZulu-Natal. We understand the dynamics here. Just to keep one man out of jail, we had such riots here that we didn't have water and bread, right? Bread and milk. And don't talk about the destruction, because that's the beast that we call politics. I saw a very nice cartoon the other day. One political candidate standing inside there. Okay, what's our strategy going forward? Burn everything to the ground. So, oh, shucks, we've done that already. You understand? My whole discussion today, like I said, was meant to initiate and to provoke discussion. I've put in quite a few red herrings in there as well. And I played devil's advocate on quite a few issues. But the whole point here is we need to have a broad perspective. And everybody needs to be asking the correct questions and engaging in fervent discussion about this matter, because it's not only us as citizens in this country. We have to look at a greater global picture out there. And we need to take advantage of what we have in this country and leverage it for the best thing for the ummah. Because all of these lobby groups of the Yahud and the Zionist occupiers, first on their agenda, over and above everything, is the preservation and the promotion of the illegitimate state of Israel. And for every Muslim, wherever he may be, his is all about one thing: Inna Deena Inda Allahi Islam. That's it. Ours is not one illegitimate state. Ours is an ideological one. Okay? And that is Islam. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا محمد رسول الله. Our eternal president is Rasulullah. Our ultimate constitution is Quran. That's it. That's it. That goes over and above every other national or nationalistic allegiance that we have. Allah give us tawfiq and hidayah. Remember, once again, Sheikh Ismail Lont will be here next week Friday. He's our guest for Jummah. He'll be reciting the Qiraat, and he's one of the masters in Qiraat recitation. Just one under Sheikh Qadir Idris Parak, of course. No, ghar ki murgi, understand? 52 weeks of the year, our man is here, right? Right, but Sheikh Ismail Lont, master in terms of qira'ah, and he'll be doing a program in the evening as well in terms of dua for Palestine. He'll be doing qira'ah and the dhikr program and the Qiyamul Layl program on Friday evening. So Jummah, and then Friday evening in the masjid here as well, and then he has a program on Saturday for refining the recitation, Quranic recitation at the workshop, and Sunday the seminar is transforming our lives through reconnecting with the Holy Quran. So please sign up for these things if you want to attend, inshallah.